So we already saw that when we eat food, we get nutrients. And those nutrients are very, very important for our health. We talked about proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, and we talked about minerals and vitamins. But also, we cannot forget to talk about water and refuges. They are still very important. So we are going to look at each of these and understand why they are very important to human health. So we are starting with proteins. So in this presentation, we want to know what proteins are, what are they made up of, okay, and why are they very important. And definitely we start with a scenario where we have Jamal, who is a vegetarian athlete. He wants to build muscle such that he can compete favorably. He feeds on beans, lettuce, and soya milk. Instead of milk, remember, instead of meat, remember, he is an athlete. But again, he is a vegetarian. A vegetarian does not eat any animal food. So meat is out of his reach because he is a vegetarian. So his coach assures him that these foods will actually help him meet his protein needs. Is that true? We hope so. We'll see that in this presentation. So what are the proteins made up and why are they very important for Jamal's muscle growth? Can you name 2 plant-based sources of protein Jamal is eating and explain how they support his athletic goals? And then can you explain how Jamal's body is actually using this dietary protein for energy instead of muscle repair, and explain what might cause this? So let's look at that. So proteins are very important in the body. We term them as micromolecules, okay, because they are needed in high amounts. But we can also say they are biomolecules, just like the other biomolecules that we have just talked about. They consist of long chains of amino acids that can be folded, twisted, or basically just a sequence of amino acids. So we say that proteins are organic in nature, okay? Proteins are organic and they consist of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and then nitrogen, sulfur, and sometimes you can have phosphorus. Why do we say sometimes? It's because proteins are actually of very many types. There are very many proteins. There are very many peptides. There are very many amino acids. So the structures will definitely not be the same. Okay, but typically all proteins are made up of amino acids. So the amino acids are the monomers of proteins. The meaning of that is that you can line up several amino acids to get a protein, and the protein is a polymer. Remember, polymers are made as a result of polymerization. Polymerization is when you have the monomers joining together to form a large molecule. So the proteins are actually very large because they consist of several amino acids, and each amino acid consists of 3 components, and you need to pay attention to them. The first component is the amino group. The second is the carboxyl group, and then the R group, which we term as the side chain. These are the three components of an amino acid. What defines or what makes amino acids different is the R group. So the R group can be occupied by any other chemical species, and that gives us different types of amino acids. We actually have over 20 amino acids. So these amino acids, the over 20 amino acids that differ by their side chain, can be found in plants and animals. So we can have what we term as animal-based proteins or plant-based proteins, depending on where we are getting these proteins from. Okay, so it is the sequence, the arrangement of this amino acid that will actually give us the different types of proteins. But also remember, the different R groups contribute to the different amino acids that we have. And then that also influences the kind of proteins that we end up with. So on the side there, you can see the different amino acids that we have. And there are quite many, about 20, like I said earlier on. And these 20 can be categorized depending on what chemical properties do they have. We have polar amino acids, non-polar amino acids, and then we have those that are electrically charged, that have electrically charged side chains. Okay. So when we talk about proteins or amino acids generally, the body can synthesize some amino acids, and then we term those amino acids as non-essential amino acids. If we get the amino acids from the food that we eat, or basically from the diet, we say those are essential amino acids. Proteins are very important in several ways. You just need to know what molecules in the body or what molecules in the body are actually made up of proteins for you to know why proteins are very important. So we start with, for example, your body cells or your tissues are actually made up of protein. So that is structural protein, including your hair, your nails, those are actually proteins. We have keratin, that's protein, and many other ligaments. You have fibrous proteins. These are all structural. Keratin, fibrous proteins. In the ligaments, these are very important for providing structural support. So we have enzymes, these are proteins. Antibodies, these are proteins. We have cell receptors, these are proteins. We have chemical signals in the body or cellular signals in the body, these are proteins. Albumin, these are proteins. Transport proteins or what we term as protein channels or carrier proteins, these are proteins. So you just need to mention the molecule and its function, and that gives you the function of the protein. So we can say the antibodies provide protection to the body, okay? And the antibodies are basically proteinous. You can say some proteins form hormones, which are very important for coordination, what we call chemical coordination, or in coordinating physiological processes. And then we can talk about transport proteins, such as carrier proteins are important in movement of ions and different organic molecules. And again, coming back, enzymes are proteins, and therefore they speed up the rate of reaction. Some proteins are very important in cellular communication and cell signals. There. Okay, so we come back to our question. So these proteins actually are very important, and they can actually help him build his muscles and prepare for the competition. Okay, the beans that he feeds on, and then also the other sources of these proteins are very important in strengthening and repairing the muscles. Okay, so the beans are important for muscle repair, and then the other proteins are also very important for building muscle strength. Okay, so the challenge is that since his diet is largely proteinous, he may not have sufficient carbohydrates that are needed for energy, because this athletics actually requires energy. So he needs to have some carbohydrates in his diet. And if he does not have the carbohydrates, it is the proteins that can be converted into the carbohydrates to provide energy. And when that happens, it means that he will not have sufficient proteins for muscle repair. So that's the situation there.